Genetically engineered foods are changing our economic and agricultural landscape. Over 90% of U.S.-grown corn, soybeans, canola, and sugar beets are now genetically modified. The rise in genetically engineered foods is becoming a growing concern for natural food growers, as the impacts are already creating superweeds and superbugs, organisms that have grown resistant to GMO herbicides and insecticides. New controversial genetically engineered crops about to be introduced include apples that do not turn brown when sliced, and genetically engineered salmon that grow much faster than wild salmon. Monsanto and other biotech companies assure us that genetic engineering will ensure global food supply and sustainability. But are the negative health and environmental effects of this technology being hidden from public view? It's time to expose the truth about genetic engineering and the patenting of life. Genetic engineering is not an extension of natural plant propagation. It is a laboratory technique that inserts a foreign gene into the DNA of another organism. This experimental process does not have any guarantee of safety. Mixing plant, animal, bacterial, and viral genes will lead to unpredictable and uncontrollable results. Examples of unforeseen changes seen in genetically engineered foods include poor crop performance, altered nutritional content, increased levels of toxins and allergens in foods, and potential harm to the environment and ecosystems. Herbicide use increases because of genetic engineering. GE crops, which are designed to withstand herbicides, actually cause hundreds of millions of pounds of additional herbicides to be applied to farmlands. In fact, glyphosate, the world's top weed killer, has greatly increased in use due to the spread of GMOs. The massive glyphosate load on farmlands caused glyphosate-resistant superweeds to proliferate, prompting use of stronger and even more toxic pesticides. Due to glyphosate resistance, new traits have been developed to use the herbicide 2,4-D, one of the primary ingredients used in Agent Orange. In plants, glyphosate disrupts the shikimate pathway, which is involved with the synthesis of important amino acids and other components. It is generally accepted in the scientific community today that glyphosate is not harmful to humans or to any mammal since this pathway is absent in all animals. However, recent research shows that glyphosate isn't minimally toxic to humans after all. According to a recent study, glyphosate inhibits cytochrome P450 or CYP enzymes, which play crucial biological roles. It enhances the damaging effects of other foodborne chemical residues and environmental toxins, and the negative impact on your body is insidious and manifests slowly over time. The consequences are the most common diseases linked to a Western diet, including gastrointestinal disorders, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, depression, autism, and cancer. Genetic engineering does not increase crop yield potential. It actually lowers crop yield, as glyphosate kills essential nutrients and beneficial organisms found in the soil. This depletes soil quality, hinders the plant's development, and leads to plant diseases. Additional traits engineered into these plants are an energy burden, and typically require more water consumption and irrigation from our depleting fresh water sources. Genetic engineering is an energy-hungry technology. Large amounts of energy and fossil fuels are still used for the production of synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, Roundup, and other glyphosate herbicides used in GMO agriculture. Genetic engineering destroys the environment. Glyphosate pesticide severely harms both GMO and non-GMO plants and even leads to sudden death syndrome, SDS, a plant disease that causes plants to turn yellow and die. The added pesticide load affects wildlife and non-pest insect populations, such as the fall in monarch butterfly populations in North America brought about by the propagation of Roundup-ready corn and soybeans. Herbicides and pesticides pollute air, soil, and drinking water, posing health risks to farm workers and consumers. Genetic engineering does not help solve climate change. Inserting tolerance to extreme weather conditions in genetically engineered crops is a very complicated process. Thus, claims that these plants are a climate change solution are false and unjustified. Genetic engineering will not help eliminate world hunger. There are no GE crops available that increase intrinsic yield. GE crops are no better than non-GE crops at tolerating poor soil or unstable climate conditions. In fact, natural breeding methods that produce efficient supercrops like flood-tolerant rice, drought-tolerant maize, and pest-resistant chickpeas may actually offer more security for our food supply. Genetic engineering has never been proven safe. The FDA does not have a mandatory safety assessment process for GMOs. Regulatory assessments on GE foods only come from biotech corporations, the same companies that profit from these positive safety studies. Independent researchers who wish to conduct studies on genetic engineering are forbidden to use GE crops. Once they reveal issues with these foods, they are criticized, their work called flawed and insubstantial. More than 50 countries all over the world have now restricted GMO crops and have passed GMO labeling laws to protect consumers. But the United States and Canada are yet to join these countries. But change is coming. On November 6, 2013, Washington will vote on People's Initiative 522, or the People's Right to Know Genetically Engineered Food Act. This proposition unites consumers, food growers, as they call for the labeling of foods that contain genetically modified ingredients. With enough votes, Washington's Proposition I-522 will be the first GE labeling law in the U.S. and the first step towards transparency between food companies and consumers, giving you the right to know. Help ensure the success of Proposition I-522 by making a donation. Your contribution will help create awareness on the effects of GMOs in our food supply. Stand up for your right for truly healthy, sustainable, and naturally grown foods. Donate to the Label It Washington Proposition I-522 today.
The typical day begins anytime the sun is up and ends long after the sun sets. Our customers mean a lot to us, so they're in the back of our minds at all times. We try to provide a quality product to people all over the United States and all over the world. Technology is the only thing that's really keeping us alive and feeding the world. And we have to have higher yields. There's more mouths to feed. That can only be obtained through GMO modification. It's a proven technology that is working. We use less chemicals with GMO, we use less tillage. That has helped us to improve the soil dramatically. The GMO crops are safe, they're effective, there's no denying the facts. The politicians should realize that the family farms are what's keeping everything going. Uniform food labeling legislation would save people a lot of money. Politicians in Washington should support the family farm. Let's get it done.
If the Senate fails to pass a national food labeling solution, costly new regulations would threaten our family farms, and families living paycheck to paycheck would have to pay an extra $1,000 or more for groceries every year. But there is a bipartisan solution to protect families and our farms. Call Senator Brown and tell him to vote for the solution that will protect family farms and keep food prices lower for Ohio
So, what
families.
are GMOs? And the reason I started researching this is because I was looking on my Snickers egg, and at the very bottom, and I wish I had my camera on so I could show you, below everything else, below the nutrition facts, below how to we value your questions, and where it's distributed by, at the very, very bottom, it says partially produced with genetic engineering. So, what is a GMO? GMOs are organisms that have had their characteristics changed through the modification of their DNA. Sounds nice, right? GMO stands for genetically modified organism. I'm sorry, but anything that has organism in my food, I do not want to eat, okay? Genetically modified GM organisms are organisms that have had their genomes. A genome is an organism's complete set of genetic instructions. Each genome contains all of the information needed to build the organism and allows it to grow and develop. Our genome is approximately 3 billion base pairs long and is packaged into 23 pairs of chromosomes. Remember the 23, okay? Okay, genetically modified GMs are organisms that have had their genomes changed in a way that does not happen naturally. By changing an organism's genome, we can change its characteristics. Any organism could be genetically modified, but laws restrict the creation of genetically modified humans. They're doing that anyways, aren't they? And the production and distribution of other GMOs is tightly regulated. Let me just look and see when the date of this article was put out. I don't even know if there is a date. We'll look at that in a minute. Sorry, my dog's snoring again. It's probably going to be a common thing just because he will not leave my side. Common examples of GMOs and GM crops used in agriculture and GM model organisms, again, used in medical research. How do we make GMOs? To create a GMO, we change specific characteristics by using lab techniques to delete or alter particular sections of DNA. We can also change an organism's characteristics by introducing new pieces of DNA into their genomes. This could be DNA taken from the same species, DNA taken from different species. Oh, that kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? Oh, well, if I have something that's made from this, what was it taken from? Oh, the possibilities. DNA made synthetically in the lab. The process of creating GMOs is called genetic modification or genetic engineering. There are several techniques that can be used to modify a genome. Agrobacterium mediated genetic modification is a technique used to introduce new DNA into a plant genome using a modified microbe. And I just lost my spot. That's nice. Will you hush, Dozer? Goodness gracious. Okay, gene targeting is a technique used to introduce new DNA into selected regions of genome through a process called homologous recombination. I cannot speak. Genome editing is a technique used to change selected regions of genome using enzymes designed to cut specific DNA sequences. I'm sorry, I am a Christian, but this really does sound like someone's trying to be God. And who is the God of this earth? That would be Satan. So, the God is the creator of all things. God, our God, the Heavenly Father, is the creator of all things. Satan is the God of this earth. So, I know that our God has the last word on everything. And in my mind, this is why he is going to have to create a new heaven and new earth. Because this is just, everything is messed up so bad. Okay, enough of my rambling. GMOs are genetically made for medical, environmental, or commercial reasons. GM white mushrooms have had a gene that normally causes them to grow brown altered so it no longer functions. These mushrooms take longer to go brown, prolonging their shelf life. GM bacteria have been developed that have had a gene for insulin added to their genome. These bacteria produce large quantities of insulin as they grow, which is then extracted and used by people with diabetes to control their blood sugar levels. So I'm just full of GM bacteria. Okay, I guess I'm just one big genetically modified organism now because I have to use insulin for my type 1 juvenile diabetes. So that's really, really good to know. The ACER1 gene is thought to be involved in skin diseases like psoriasis. GM mice have been made where the ACER1 gene no longer functions to study what it normally does. These mice have had their hair lost and are less able to control heat and water loss from their skin. Photo comparing a normal mouse left with a mouse with the ACER1 gene mutated on the right. The modified mouse has less hair than the normal mouse. Does that sound right to you? Oh my goodness. What is not a GMO? The genomes of organisms change naturally over time. For example, when organisms mate, offspring get bits of DNA from both parents. Mutations arise as a result of mistakes when DNA is copied. Environmental factors like UV radiation can create changes in DNA. That just puts you into a deeper rabbit hole you can start jumping into. I'm not going to get into that into this video. These changes to the DNA are not genetic modifications, as they happen naturally. But what doesn't happen naturally is the change of vitamin D that we get per day with all the weather modification that changes the UV radiation. And I don't know if you all have noticed this, but specifically last summer, I stepped outside and it wasn't even that humid, okay? But I stepped outside and I couldn't even stand to be out there no more than like 2 minutes because the sun was like literally burning my skin. And they say the hottest time of the day is 1 p.m. And it wasn't even 1 yet. And I was just, wow. I mean, I can remember when I was little, my mother used to literally have to make me come inside, but at night. But I was outside from dusk till dawn, and I stayed outside. The only time that I came in to take a drink, or the only time that I came in was to take a drink and to use the bathroom, and then I would just go right back out. I do not remember it being so hot. And I can also remember going into the shade, like say behind the house on the porch, and the concrete still being cool, and the shade, you actually getting relief from the shade. And these days, it's like, they say that shade is supposed to be 10 degrees cooler. I'm sorry, but that is not true anymore. I mean, it's almost to the fact, gets to the point to where you don't even want your children playing outside very long. And it's sad. And of course they have stuff to do inside, but it's getting a little bit, it's getting a little bit to be too much what all they can do inside, because kids don't even want to go outside and play these days. So I said I was determined to get a bike this summer and to just go, go to the park and ride our bikes, or within our subdivision, and just, get my children outdoors more often instead of just, hey, let's go to the water park. Instead of doing that, let's just start doing things outside more and get these kids outside instead of staying inside on all these electronics. And of course I limit that with my children, but that just, I could just go into another whole topic with that, but I just wanted to share this with you all. I was actually looking into something else when I found this information, and I'm sure a lot of you all have already researched GMOs, okay? But, oh, there's the date of this page, was updated to 1717. So, just wanted to let you know. Oh, something else I wanted to mention. So, all these genetically modified foods are supposed to last longer, which I'm sure they add preservatives. Well, preservatives preserve the shelf life, such as you've got your loaf of bread that doesn't mold as quick. You've got your apples, of course, that don't brown. And all of this is affecting everything, including when the coroner goes to try to examine someone that is deceased. They are actually having trouble determining the time of death due to the amount of preservatives in our body. And I got this information from an actual police officer So they are aware of it too. And that's really kind of scary because, and maybe that's the whole thing, like the fountain of youth is what they're trying to get at, to where people are aging less due to all the preservatives that are in the body from the foods that we eat. I mean, all of this goes together. It's all one big plan. Thanks for listening, you guys. Please like, share, subscribe, and let's help spread the word.